Aujourd'hui, je vais parler de whether I'd go to a city that I'm pretty sure almost no one who hasn't been there can point to on a map. No, seriously, if I just said Reykjavik to you, where would you point your fingers? Come on, comment down below on your first try on a map. I dare you. Hey, XenPuck here. It's time for me to see the spotlight to our lovely Mr. Fluffy. Hi there. I put you in a swaddle type of situation again because, oh boy, last time you move around a lot. Okay, look at the camera, please. Please. No, cat's not going to do what I tell him to do. Okay, that's fair. You are a cat after all. No, not even a little. Okay. Anyway, I'm finally going to pick a location that I've actually been to already, okay? So the real reason of whether I think Mr. Fluffy would want to go is, in reality, it's more like whether I think my wife would like to go with me, right? So I'm making this clip to try to convince her. And we are, of course, talking about Reykjavik. Now, believe me, I had to look up how to spell the name of the city, because even though I've been there, because there's just so many random Ks, I feel like there's more Ks than I expected, okay? It's the capital of Iceland, which is in the northern Atlantic, just hanging in there, not doing much for the world economy, generally speaking. Oh, and I'll probably use the city's name and the country name more or less interchangeably in this video, because honestly, Iceland is not a very big country and only has this one real city in it, okay? And even that single real city only has a 200k population. I mean, that's, to me, that's basically a small town masquerading as a city, but hey, everything is, oh boy, relative, right? Okay, on to our usual criteria-based breakdown. Number one, location. Yeah, so this city is really in the middle of nowhere, right? I should revise my statement. This whole country is in the middle of nowhere, on the margins, okay? Now, one of my favorite moments of visiting this place many years ago was simply looking at a world map as imagined by the official airlines of Iceland, aptly named Iceland Air, that shows all the routes that it flies, but out of one spot, out of where Iceland is at. So as if Iceland is the center of the world. It really gave me some perspective as to how everyone on the planet really likes to think of that they are indeed the most important place, right? Oh, and also when the announcer on the flight said something like, "Thank you for choosing Iceland Air," without any hint of irony. Because, at the time, if you wanted to go to Iceland, you literally would have had no other choice except Iceland Air, okay? Anyway, I already mentioned that the whole country only has one real city, right? But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It makes really the entire city kind of drivable-ish within a day, I would say. I mean, you'll see when you get there, just the drive from the airport to the city itself can count as sort of a tourist attraction. I'll get to that a little bit later in the attraction section, okay? Number two, food. Well, since I've been there as a tourist already, I can tell you that the food is not superbly noteworthy, at least not 15 years ago. Oh Lord, I am old. Anyway, but that's to be expected for a Scandinavian country that's literally also an island, right? Basically, the country has very, very few agricultural resources of its own, and ingredients are hard to come by because it's an island nation. So basically, restaurant prices are all, like, fairly high, simply because almost everything has to be imported, right? But I already read about that, so I was mentally prepared. Plus, I wasn't really there for the food the first time. I was there for its kind of off the beaten pathiness. So yeah, it's not too bad feeding yourself if you're on a budget, if you're willing to simply stroll into a local market and get food there rather than eating out at a restaurant every time, right? Like, like a regular non-touristy human being. So, not that hard. However, I guess I should also mention that, in the past decade, the Scandinavians as a whole has gotten more culinary cachet, right? As far as I can tell, in the media, in the papers. So maybe that's also changed in Reykjavik. I'm kind of curious whether it has gone that far, deep into, like, the margins of Scandinavia, right? All right, number three, attractions. Ooh. So yes, first off, I just have to mention how strange Iceland is as a whole, okay? The place made me feel like I was on a different planet, to be honest. This is because I think, the entire country of Iceland is basically built on a bunch of volcanoes, or maybe one big volcano. So if you roll down your windows while driving, you can definitely smell something. I believe it is sulfur. It's like a very distinct smell, right? Very bizarre. I mean, I don't know anywhere else on Earth that's like that, but also has people living nearby. Anyone? Anyone? Anyway, Iceland as a country also has some fantastic warm springs, or maybe they're called hot springs. The most famous one is called the Blue Lagoon. Yes, named like the movie. I'm actually curious which one came first, like whether their thing was already named that or the movie named it after them. Anyway, you guys have heard that saying that says Iceland is green while Greenland is icy. Well, I've never been to Greenland, and I wouldn't really call Iceland green, but Iceland definitely breaks that kind of, you know, its namesake wherever the hot springs are. Okay, I mean the air may be cold and crispy, but when you're just soaking in a natural hot spring, I mean the contrast itself makes you feel like you're somewhere literally amazing. Okay. I recall at the Blue Lagoon place, they also sell all sorts of like natural health and beauty products that are based on the lagoon. But I'm not a girl, so I didn't buy any of that stuff. But some of you might be interested in that. Okay. Now, of course, let me not ignore the city itself. Right, Reykjavik, when I was there, it just felt very small and compact. Okay. I went to visit with a friend of mine for a concert series over a course of like a week or so, right? I really enjoyed myself because everything is very, very walkable precisely because the city's just not very big, right? Pretty much all the venues are within a 30-minute walk from each other. And we're talking about like a dozen venues, right? So you will literally run into whoever was performing later in the evening, because everyone goes to the same few spots to get some late night bites. So in a sense, the city actually felt really very much like a playground than a real metropolis. Is that good or bad? I mean, I think that's a personal preference type of thing, right? Now, one thing I didn't do last time that I would absolutely love to do is to go do something surrounding the hidden people, aka Icelandic elves type of attraction, okay? Seriously, go Google that subject, because that's a rabbit hole that's unique to this place, all right? I mean, I would love to just go attend the famous, I think there's only one, Icelandic elf school and get my official certificate that marks me as an official elf spotter, I think? I have no idea what a certificate that you can earn in a day would do, but I want it, damn it. Yes, that's right. I want to hang it on my wall. Oh, and side note, Game of Thrones has had location shoots in Iceland for the places, you know, for in the show where the wildlings were like in the far north, right? So I bet these days that you can go visit like the cave where Jon Snow and his actual real-life wife, but also on-screen lover, got it on or something. Wouldn't that be something, right? I wonder what they sell in a gift shop, to be honest. Hopefully, because what's shot up in Iceland is all the cold stuff. You know, I'm really hoping that they would sell the IKEA rugs that the Night's Watch actually wore as overcoats. That would be amazeballs. Let's see. So I have to mention, so for X Factor, right? Finally, X Factor. I have to mention how the locals would actually ask me a question in Icelandic first, right? This despite the fact that the local Asian population is basically, I would assume, practically zero, right? In a tiny island nation, the locals are polite enough to assume that I'm a local. This is a level of courtesy that I can't even say that I've been afforded to in the USA, despite having lived here the majority of my life, okay? Wow. Yeah, I mean, obviously I do love America, but this difference here just shows me the vast differences in basic educational level between these two disparate populations, right? Now, finally, realistic chance of going. I'd actually say maybe 65% of making it back to Reykjavik for me, and, you know, aka the first time for my wifey. I mean, I'm very sad that, to be honest, this whole country is probably a little too cold for Mr. Fluffy most of the year. But for wifey, it's different. She wouldn't think it's unsafe. It's got that common-ish Scandinavian heritage thing that she'd be into. I'm curious whether she'd be disturbed by the smell of sulfur. Also, despite Iceland counting as an European country, actually, it's really a little bit far from every other European country because it's nowhere near the continent. So I think we'd probably go visit it as a one-off. Definitely not as part of the longer European stay that I'm picturing in my mind, right? Because, you know, in reality, it's just as close to New York City as it is from even the most western part of actual Europe. Oh well, maybe we'll go look at wildlife, because you know what else is around Iceland? Puffins and whales. That's right. Comment, like, and subscribe or whatever. Till next time, cheers.